You think you know World War II? You've heard about Pearl Harbor, D-Day, and the atomic bombs. Let's start with something you probably haven't heard of. Ghost Army. No, I'm not talking about supernatural soldiers. I mean the U.S. Army's 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. They were artists, designers, sound engineers, and actors recruited specifically for their creativity. Their battlefield wasn't fought with bullets, but with illusions. Imagine being a German soldier peering through binoculars and seeing what looks like an entire armored division assembling near the front lines. You hear the rumble of tanks, the chatter of soldiers, the clanking of machinery. You report this massive build-up to your commanders, and they divert their own troops to counter this threat. The only problem? It was all fake. The tanks were balloons, the soldiers were a handful of actors, and the sounds were coming from a record player. They were masters of misdirection, using creativity as a weapon of war. Their work was kept secret for over 40 years after the war ended. Now, let's talk about food. We know rationing was a big deal, but did you know that carrots became a tool of British propaganda? This technology allowed their pilots to see and shoot down German bombers in complete darkness. Of course, the British government didn't want the Germans to know about their radar advantage. So, what did they do? Posters went up everywhere showing pilots with superhuman eyesight, all thanks to this humble root vegetable. Cookbooks were published with recipes for carrot fudge, carrot jam, and even a drink called carrot. Speaking of secrets, let's move over to the Pacific. When you think of the war against Japan, you think of island hopping and naval battles. But what about bats? Yes, you heard me right. The bats would then fly into the nooks and crannies of Japan's wooden buildings to roost. A timer would then detonate the small bombs, starting thousands of fires simultaneously all across the city. This might sound like a crazy cartoon plot, but the US military took it very seriously. They spent $2 million developing the project, codenamed Project X-Ray. They even ran tests. During one test, some armed bats escaped and flew to a nearby hangar and a general's car, burning both to the ground. The project showed incredible promise, proving that the concept could work. His name was Jack Churchill, but he was better known as Mad Jack. He was a British Army officer who fought throughout the Second World War, armed with a longbow, arrows, and a Scottish brush. He is famously quoted as saying, "Any officer who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed." And he wasn't just carrying them for show. In 1940, during the Battle of France, he signaled an attack by shooting a German sergeant with a barbed arrow, becoming the last British soldier known to have killed an enemy with a longbow in wartime. His adventures didn't stop there. In another battle, he and a single corporal managed to capture 42 German soldiers and a mortar crew. Using only his sword, he would charge into battle, playing his bagpipes, terrifying the enemy. He was captured, escaped from a concentration camp, was recaptured, and escaped again, walking 150 miles to safety. After the war, when he heard the fighting was over, he was reportedly disappointed, saying, "If it wasn't for those damn Yanks, we could have kept the war going another 10 years. Mad Jack was a true one-of-a-kind warrior, a throwback to a medieval era fighting in a modern war. Let's shift gears again to the home front and a group of women who played a vital and noisy role. These centers allowed millions of women, famously symbolized by Rosie the Riveter, to contribute to industrial production, building the planes, ships, and munitions needed to win the war. When the war ended and the men came home, most of these centers were shut down. But for a brief period, they represented a revolutionary shift in thinking about women's roles in society and the economy, a conversation that we are still having today. Finally, let us look at one of the war's most ironic and tragic tales, the fate of the Japanese balloon bombs. Towards the end of the war, Japan launched over 9,000 Fugo fire balloons. These were hydrogen balloons carrying bombs designed to float across the Pacific Ocean on the jet stream and land in North America, starting massive forest fires and causing panic. No newspapers or radio stations were allowed to report on the balloon bombs. This censorship was incredibly effective, but it had a tragic consequence. In May 1945, a pregnant pastor's wife named Elsie Mitchell and 5 children from her church were on a picnic in the woods of Oregon. It was a heartbreaking end to a little-known chapter of the war. A silent attack that only became known after it claimed its innocent victims. These aren't the tailies you'll find in most textbooks, but they are a crucial part of the story. It's a rich tapestry of human experience, full of courage, strangeness, and sacrifice. The past is always more complex and more fascinating than we think.
If you love uncovering the truth, don't forget to subscribe. More hidden history is coming every week, only on History Uncovered.